All right, awesome. All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our day in the life of a senior software engineer for Alumni Takeover Month. My name is Lori Brazili. I am a career coach in the Career Center. I actually work with technology, data, and analytics students. But in addition to my coaching, I also am the coordinator of Alumni Takeover Month as the alumni engagement liaison for the Career Center. So I'm really excited to kind of have a month's worth of activities where we're bringing back alumni to kind of talk about all the wonderful things that they're doing. And so before we get into it, I would love if you wouldn't mind maybe introducing yourself in the chat if you want to let us know tell us, what you're studying and, maybe what you're interested in. You can just kind of pop that into the chat. So we have until about 4:45 today, and we are just going to learn a little bit more about kind of the day in the life as a senior software engineer. So we have Sanyo, who is an alum. So she works for Ford Motor Company. I'm sure she'll tell you more about that as a senior software engineer and did a master's in computer science here at Charlotte. So really excited to kind of learn more about her pathway and kind of what a day in the life looks like. So once we get through that, there will be time for Q&A. So be thinking of questions that you want to ask as well. And again, if you don't mind just introducing yourself in the chat, that will be awesome. So we know who we're talking with. So with that, I'll go ahead and throw it over.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laurie, for doing this and also for the introduction. So I'll start from the beginning, like how I started in computer science and how I got my first job and things like that. So I did my bachelor's in computer science in India, and then I moved to the US, I think 7 years ago now, and I came to Charlotte to do my master's in computer science. I was majoring in data science at that point, so I had taken some courses for data science as well. And it took me like 1.5 years to finish my master's. When I was doing my master's, I was also looking for some summer internships. At that point, I just went to an event just like this one. It was in person at UNC Charlotte. And I met someone there who introduced me to someone who was working in the startup called Autonomic. And that's how I actually landed my first internship. So I was doing a lot of applications. I think I had done like everybody does, right? Hundreds of application, but I landed my internship as a software engineering intern through this event. I think it was Girls Who Code event that I had attended. So when I got this internship, I got to come to Palo Alto for 3 months. It was an amazing experience. I came to California for the first time, got to live in Silicon Valley, got to see how everything works here. And eventually, when I was I did really well in this internship. I showed to my manager, like, I am capable of like doing all the work, and he offered me like a full-time job. So I went to UNC Charlotte again for my last semester, and then I came back as a full-time employee for this startup called Autonomic. I was a software engineer there. I was a software engineer there for like 4 years, almost 4 years. I got two promotions. I went from software engineering one to two to three then. And last year, Autonomic as a startup, it was already owned by Ford, but we merged into Ford Motor Company as like a restructuring of the organization. So that's how I've started working with Ford. I've been working with the same team, but now it's under the Ford leadership. So I have the experience of both, like the startup, how a small team works, and now a Ford, which is like a huge company with so many people, how that works as well. Talking about what I do at Ford and what I did at Autonomic, I am a backend engineer. So basically, what I work with is I write code in Java. I also have expertise in building microservices and distributed services. Let me give like an example. So, for example, you guys might have known like a lot of cars have apps these days. So you can use the app to like start and stop your car, or check maybe the last location of your car. If your car was stolen, like you can find out your car, like what's happening to the car and things like that, right? So for that, companies like Ford have to collect a lot of data. And a company like Ford has like almost 20 million or even more than that amount of vehicles running on the road. And when these vehicles are running, they're constantly sending us data. So they need to take care of this data because data is really sensitive, right? This is a sensitive data. There is location data. There is like VIN numbers and things like that. So we have to take a lot of things into consideration, like data compliance, but at the same time also being able to handle so much data. We want to make sure that our systems don't crash, our systems are able to like keep all that data and also keep the apps running, right? So that's something that I do as my job, is make sure that my service is scaled properly and my services are reliable. My service in particular powers the Ford Pass app. If you guys have heard about it, basically every Ford car owner has this app, and they can start their car, stop their car, even like start if you're living in like a cold environment, a colder place like maybe Michigan, even in Charlotte during winters, you can start your car and get it to maybe a good temperature so that you don't have to like freeze in your car. So things like that can be powered through this app. So it's really interesting. I think it's a really interesting and complex job because um, there's 20 million vehicles and there's like billions of signals or telemetry, what we call it, that we are receiving on a daily basis, and we have to take care of it, store it properly, and also like make sure that we are doing all the data compliance because like there's a lot of personal information of people, right? So that's mostly what I've been doing. Other technologies that I work with is something called as Apache Kafka. We use it extensively. That's something I've been working on for the last 4 to 5 years. We also do there's also clouds like AWS cloud, the GCP cloud. There's other clouds as well, but we currently use AWS and GCP. So just understanding what the cloud is also helps a lot. And we deploy our services using something called as Kubernetes. So that's like an orchestration service that we call. So that helps us deploy our services to AWS. And we also do a lot of monitoring. Excuse me, monitoring of our services. So in case like your service is not doing well, for some reason, there's like a game. So we had this situation when there was a game and a lot of people were like taking their cars out and going onto the roads. So there was a surge in the data that we were getting. So during these times, if something goes wrong with our services, it's not able to handle, you should be able to like the developer should know that, okay, something is wrong with my service. So there's a lot of monitoring that goes on for your services. So you use a different types of tools for that. Some of them are like something called as Prometheus. There's something called Grafana, Datadog, and things like that. So all these technologies, not very, I guess not in very depth, but just being able to use them is important. So the current thing that I'm working on right now is I've built this service that I said like supports the FordPass app, but now this service and we want to extend the runway of this service for the next 5 years. Now, why is it important? In the next 5 years, there will be more cars manufactured by Ford, right? And this 20 million number, it could go more than that. So we need to figure out a way that my service is able to handle that. And that's why we know that the current version is not going to be able to handle it. So we are building this from scratch. So changing the design altogether so that we will be able to handle it. So that's what I'm working on right now. What it entails is like looking through a lot of different technologies. What did not work in this technology that we have currently, and overcoming those challenges in the next technologies, right? So in the last 2-3 months, I was doing a lot of um, research on different types of databases. I was looking into Postgres. I was looking into something called as Aurora, which is through AWS. And I was like, looking at all the advantages and disadvantages of these databases. So currently that's what I'm working on. um, and maybe like, yeah, I can now like talk about like the day to day from like in the mornings to the evening, what I do. um, so the first things what we do, like because I'm on the West Coast, we have a team which is on West Coast as well as on the East Coast. So the time that is best for both the teams to meet for something called as a stand up. So every morning we have a meeting where all the developers come in this meeting from like both the West Coast and East Coast, and what they're going to do is give an update of what they're working on. um, so I would say something like, this is the story I'm working on. This is what I'm doing. This is what I did today. This is what I did yesterday. And I'll also talk if there are any any blockers to my story. Usually, sometimes it happens that your story maybe dependent on something that some other team is doing or some other developer is doing, and that could be blocking you, right? So it's a like it's a great time in the stand up to like just voice that, okay, this is my blocker, and then your manager could help you out or your team members could help you out. It's also a great place to like tell other team members if you need any help, if you're stuck on something, if you're not understanding something about a technology, or if somebody else has used that technology but you haven't used it. So it's a great time to ask for help. So usually this stand up is supposed to be like 15 minutes, but my team, for some reason, we have it for an hour because we like to talk about, okay, what's going on, and share everything. And also there's something called as a parking lot where people can discuss in depth of any issue that they have, or give like demos of something that they were working on and want to share it with the team. So this is a great place to show visibility of your work, talk about your work, and tell your other team members what you're working on. So there's a parking lot. So that's the first meeting of the day. After that, most of the people will start like mostly independently working on their code. Some people are working on coding. Some developers are working on design, because sometimes when in the initial phases of of your service, or you're writing a new version of anything, you'll probably need like a design document, something where you'll write, okay, this is how I want to make this, and then you get other developers' opinion on it, if this is how we want to go ahead, or if there is a better way of doing this, and things like that. And then ad hoc, like we also use something called Slack. I think everybody must have heard about Slack. We use Slack to communicate with each other. So if somebody has any issues or things like that, they will, or has any questions, so they will post it on Slack. There's different channels, and we are expected that we answer those questions if we know about them, right? And also like give our opinions about something. If your manager is asking something, or other teammates are asking something, it's important that you give your opinions, and also answer those questions if you know about it. Other things that happen is other developers are working on something and they create a pull request, something on GitHub, right? So whenever you are writing your code, write your code, and then when you want to merge it into your shared code base, you need to create something called as a pull request, where once you create the pull request, the developers are able to see what the changes you have made, and then they can also comment on it, or they can say, okay, this is not going to work, or this is like a bug, you need to fix it, and things like that. So we have to do it for other developers, and other developers have to do it for you, and that's how like your work is reviewed, right? And once your work is reviewed properly, and then it gets merged. So we get a lot of like ad hoc requests during the day by other developers to like review our code as well. um, Usually that's what we do, like between, I guess, after the stand up and before lunch, like look for any things that other people have asked for, like code reviews, or ask any questions, or catch up on the work that I have been doing, on the story that I have been giving. Then we also have something called as planning meetings on Monday. So usually what most teams follow is something called as a sprint, and that's like a 2 week thing. So basically you plan for 2 weeks what you're going to work on, and that planning happens mostly once in those 2 weeks on a Monday. And on that Monday, the team comes together. The manager or the team lead is going to assign you tasks for the next 2 weeks, and you're supposed to complete those in the next 2 weeks. So that those meetings happen on Monday mornings usually. We also do something called as retros, where we talk about the last 2 weeks and see what went wrong, what went right, what should be done better. So those are part of our planning meetings, or I think we have either the planning meeting or the retro meetings every Monday. So that's something we do. After that, we also have a lot of meetings after. Let's talk about like after the lunch. We have some meetings with other developers. Like I said, developers are working on design documentation, so they need like the whole team's buy-in. If this is what you want to do, or if there's other ways, better ways to do it. So we have those meetings as well, and we also sometimes do something called as pair programming. So basically, in this case, you just call your other developer and you share your screen and you both write code together. So that's something sometimes like if I'm not able to work with this new technology, or I'm not able to like figure out how to fix this bug, right? So we might just like call each other, share my screen, and we might just do some brainstorming. So that also happens sometimes. So yeah, that's I think mostly what we do. It's like a lot of meetings as well. It's not just coding, like I think a lot of people have this misconception that it's going to be just like I'll put my head down and just do coding, but there's a lot of meetings, and also like a lot of interruptions happening through like Slack, or just like people asking for help and things like that. Yeah, and I mostly like try to wrap up things by 5 p.m. Like I work from 10 to 5 p.m. One more thing that I wanted to add is something called as on-call duty. So just like I think how doctors might have like on call, ours is maybe not as difficult as theirs, but if any there's like every 2 to 3 months that I have to be on call. It's like for the whole week, from Monday to the next Monday, and during this time I could get a call at any time. It could be 3 a.m. in the morning, and it has happened multiple times. It could be 3 a.m. in the morning if any of our services, like I said, those monitoring services, monitoring tools, right? They always keep an eye on your service 24/7. And if anything goes wrong, they're just going to page you. So I get paged at 3 a.m. in the morning, or anytime in the day. I have to hop on. I always have to carry my laptop wherever I go during this time, and I have to hop on and solve whatever the issue is. Um, Usually there's like a set of instructions given for everything that could go wrong, and you just have to follow them. And a lot of times, like your manager is always there to help you, your other teammates are always there to help you, but yeah, you are the first person in line of fire, right? So so yeah, that's definitely one of the stressful times. But over the years, I've gotten like really good at understanding how to make it less stressful. And sometimes it also happens like in those 7 days, nothing happens at all, and it's totally fine. And sometimes it happens that, oh, there's too many things going wrong. So yeah, that's like one other thing. I think not all the companies have this. Some companies have a different team which takes care of these things for them, but some companies, the teams have to take care of it on their own. So yeah, that's another thing. So yeah, I think that's mostly what I could think of what I do on a day-to-day basis. But I think I
Yeah.
a lot of information.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's been fascinating. And I'm glad that you brought up about kind of your on-call rotation, because that was something that I was wondering when you were talking about kind of being part of this. you had your own you were part of the team that has a service. And I was wondering, when things go wrong, like kind of what that looks like. And you were saying, sometimes it can be really stressful and that
Yeah.
you've kind of figured out with experience how to like make it less stressful. So when it is stressful, when it is you are on call and you're, like every day or every hour or something's going wrong, like how do you kind of take care of yourself during those times? What do you
Yeah.
do to like de-stress?
Yep. So, I think the team itself is very understanding
Mm.
about if somebody is on call, and if suppose they had to wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning, right, to do something. The next day, what I do is, I would say, hey, I might not be able to join the stand up. Like, at 10, I'm
Yeah.
gonna take some time and get, catch up on my sleep. Recently we had like this issue where it was ongoing for like 12 plus hours, and some of the employees had not slept. So then, we bring in the rest of the team to like help them out, so that they can go and rest, and somebody else would like fill in for them when those things are going really really bad.
Mm.
um those times are rare, like especially the one that I said, like 12 plus hours. Those times like happen once in 2 3 years. So that's good. But I think that's how like I lean on the team, and try to also communicate that, hey, this is how I couldn't sleep last night, so I would like to take off. And I think the team is really really helpful in this scenario. So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, that definitely helps to bring the stress down a little bit.
Yeah, great. And yeah, it sounds like, like you were saying, it's a lot of meetings and working with people, and it's not just kind of like independently, your head down,
Yeah.
kind of doing so, being able to kind of have that team mentality and being able to work with people and communicate. It sounds like it's also very important in addition to the technical side of things. And so we do have a question in the chat from Trinity about the average size of the software engineering teams. Can you kind of shed some light on that?
Yeah. So, for me, I've worked like since the time I've started working with Autonomic and Ford, right? I have been in like different sizes of team. The first time when I joined just the tech industry, it was like around 20 people in a team. But at the same time, this was like, one team under one manager, but they were also working on different things. So there would be like 3 to 4 people who would be working on one service, the other people working on different services. So that was like 2020 like size, but now the team is becoming smaller. So I think there's like usually all the companies have a set number of people that they want under a particular manager. So there's like a minimum number. I think that's like 3 or 4. So I would ideally see it can go from like 3 or 4 people to anywhere to 20 as well. But given like one service or one particular thing, I think there's like 3 to 4 people working on that, supporting like a single one. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. You had mentioned that obviously you have experience kind of like with startup and then obviously working for a large company, but you also have an experience that a lot of people don't necessarily get until you get into the real world, but of going through kind of like a change in leadership or like an acquisition. And what was that transition like going
Mhm.
from, the company before and then now it's under Ford Motor Company? Like what were there some differences and kind of just how did it, I guess, to what extent did that impact your day to day?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's definitely like a very, I would say, different time when something like that is happening, because there's a lot of change in the direction of what you will be working on, because the new leadership maybe doesn't think this is important that you're working on, thinks that something else is important, right? So during that phase, I think when something like this is happening, because all these efforts, there's also sometimes like some of your friends could be like laid off at this point. So it's also a little bit difficult in a sense, because you have to say goodbye to some people, right? And I think there's a lot of, I think, confusion in a sense, like, okay, what is where it is headed. So that's how I felt. But I had a really open communication with all the leadership that was coming with me from the previous company to this new company. So constantly like talking to them and understanding what's important and which direction we are headed is really important. And I think the leadership tried to make it really smooth, as smooth as possible. So I think, yeah, just like having that communication whenever you feel like, you're confused or there's not a lot of clarity. I think a lot of leadership at that time was open to having those conversations. So that was like, I think that made it easier on us. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that insight. I've kind of had similar experiences through like reorganizations, and there's always that like kind of just period of uncertainty and that's something that you're not sure like how your job is going to be impacted and what, kind of like how your role particularly relates to the vision and so that can be that can cause some anxiety for people, and these are things that you kind of have to kind of deal with in the
Yeah.
in the workplace that maybe hadn't dealt with before. So a follow-up question to the question about the size of the software engineering teams are the projects that you're placed on typically long-term projects?
Yeah, so currently the project that I've been working on it like since I was in autonomic. So in autonomic, I worked on something else as an intern, and then first year of my full-time role. But then later I was switched on to a project which I'm still supporting it today. The thing is, like, the requirements kept changing for this project. First it was, okay, we need to support 10 million vehicles, then it was 20 million vehicles, and now it's like the next 5 years we need to plan for it, right? So it was definitely like a long-term project. And there's like a lot of things that we this is like a big ecosystem, like Ford Pass itself, we want to support it, but then there's like a lot of different things that we do around it, which is like, okay, load testing, so then build a framework for load testing. We want to do end-to-end testing, then build a framework to do the end-to-end testing. Then there's a lot of DevOps involved. Okay, now we want to make sure that the deployments are done really fast and without having downtime. So there was a lot of, I think, things surrounding it, the project itself. So even though it's like a single project, I think I got to work on a lot of different aspects of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. Another question that we have in the chat is, what is the most important lesson you have learned transitioning from university to work life? And what are some good tips for behavioral and technical internship interview?
I think, yeah, there's like two parts to this
Mhm.
question. So the first part, what is like the most important lesson? I think for me, what I have learned is not being shy, or
Mhm.
not being shy away from like sharing your opinion.
Mhm.
That has been a really important lesson for me. So I've always like been like did not share my opinion a lot, or did not want to like um, always be like, pleasing people, so not talk too much. But I think that somehow affects your career in negative way, because what is more important is your visibility. And as a software engineer, a main part of your job is to have opinions, to share them, because that's how the team will be influenced, right? If you know something, and if you think, okay, the team is making a decision that might not be is not taking into consideration your opinion, then it's definitely not great. And the people like who have those opinion are more visible in the team, and share more of their opinions. They kind of like tend to be the ones who are then asked for help as well, because then the team understands, okay, because they're giving their opinions, they do care about this. And when don't talk in meetings, when you don't share your opinion, people think, oh, probably you just don't care, right? So that's one of the things that I've learned in my career, to be just more visible, be more open, and share my opinion. And other thing, I think good tips for behavioral and technical internship. So what I did for behavioral interviews was just to go through all the questions. Like even if you like just Google the behavioral top behavioral interview questions, I think most of them are still being used, like tell me about yourself, or tell me a situation where you had to do something, right? And I would say, like, especially in this currently, because we have chat gpt, I think it'll be such a great tool to use for this. You could just say that, hey, I'm interviewing as for this role, and this is what I want, and can you just generate these behavioral questions? And it could also like help you perfect your answers. You could say that this is my answer, what do you think about it, right? So I would say use those tools to get better. um, and for the technical interview itself, I would say every company does it differently. Like the big companies will focus more on like lead code style coding. Some of the smaller startups will focus more on the experience, like what particular technology you've used. So I would say use something called, not something, I think everybody knows, use Glassdoor. But one another thing that I find really useful is where people share their interview experiences is on Lead Code Discuss. So there's a discuss section where people like talk about their interviews, their experiences, what questions can be asked. Um, so use those tools. I think that will be really helpful. And another thing I know is Blind, called something as Blind, where people also share their interview experiences. So yeah, just like for any company that you're interviewing, just go through what was asked in the past. That really helps in preparing in a certain direction.
Yeah, definitely. I would plug ChatGPT. I know in the academic environment it's kind of frowned upon, but at least from the Career Center perspective and from employers, like we are really embracing it. So you can throw that job description that you're going to be interviewing for in ChatGPT and ask it to generate 10 possible questions, and then that's how you can start your preparation. So highly recommend that. And then yeah, I would echo like LeetCode and HackerRank can be some good coding platforms to kind of practice for the technical part. So with going back to the chat here, there's a really good question about imposter syndrome. So have you ever experienced imposter syndrome in your first job when you were transitioning from school to industry? And if so, how did you handle it? What are some suggestions you would give to a beginner?
Yeah, 100%. I think I still feel imposter syndrome from time to time. Like it's just because when I transitioned from, I think even coming from India, right? I used to be somebody who used to be at the top. Because it was like a small school or like small university. I used to be on the top, and then coming to US, okay, there's so many different people, and then you always feel that, okay, maybe I am not good enough. And then that just amplifies when you get into the industry, because you're learning everything from scratch. Like, I guess you are learning working with a team, right? You probably in the university, it's just you're working independently most of the times, but also maybe in projects you do work with people. But as someone in a team, you are constantly on a daily basis working in a team. So you always have this feeling, oh, this person who probably has 15 years more experience than you start comparing yourself to them also sometimes, right? So especially as an intern, I would say, don't be too hard on yourself. uh, you are comparing yourself to maybe somebody who has like 10 years of experience, 15 years of experience, and that's just not fair, right? They probably like learned on the go. There's a software engineering job, it's just not something like you learn in 2 days, like you just do a course and you learn it, right? There's so many nuances to it that you learn as you stay in this career. So the first thing is, like, don't compare yourself to others. And the other thing I would say is, it's okay to not know certain things, right? Because there's so much to know, and you can't possibly know everything. So it's a daily learning journey. I think what I try to do is I try to see it in a way that yeah, it's okay if I don't know this. I am trying to learn, and the teammates that I have, they're here to help me. So that's how I see it. And sometimes it does uh, get difficult, when I think you're probably not able to do something, especially I think also for women, as women in tech. I've also seen, because I'm like the only woman in my team, and there's everybody else is not a woman. So it's difficult, but at the same time, I try to talk to other women in tech, and also share my experiences. And when I see that they echo the same feelings, then when you feel like you belong, I think that's also that helps. So I know the answer is all over the place, but yeah,
That
it's
is,
a yeah.
oh, sorry, I didn't want to cut you
No,
off.
it's
Go
okay.
ahead.
Yeah, I
I
think
was
it's
just,
a
go
difficult
ahead.
challenge, just being like, I think, women in tech as well, and the imposter syndrome. But we have to, I think just being aware of it and seeing where we are being too hard on ourselves helps. Yeah.
Yeah. Even seasoned people having
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
imposter
Exactly.
syndrome. So, but yeah, thanks for sharing that. So do you have any tips or strategies for international students on getting their first internship? I know you said you got your internship by attending an employer event on campus, which is amazing to hear. But any other tips that you can provide? Obviously, there's
Yeah.
some limitations when you're on an F1 visa. And I'm just assuming that you've had that experience, but I don't know. So
Yeah.
if you can shed some light, that'd be great.
Sure, yeah, definitely. So yeah, international students, I think it's always challenging with I guess just the time limits that we have sometimes to find like a full time. But for internships, I would say it's really important to have things in place, right? Like having a really good resume, networking with people, like talking to other people, like talking to your seniors, going to events as many as possible, and also letting people know that I am looking for something like this. You never know what conversation you strike with someone, and you might get that opportunity, right? So and also, like, I think being prepared for interviews. um yeah, you need to like do the networking as well, but once you get that interview, you should be able to crack it as well. So just being prepared for the interviews, and just following like all those networking, um having good resume, have a really good LinkedIn profile. Like, I think keep trying like different tips and tricks on LinkedIn. So sometimes maybe change the description, maybe add something else, like keep trying new things. And when you I think try multiple things, then one of the things might land. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I'm dropping in the chat just a list for tech data and analytics. We have a list of job and internship search resources for international students specifically. So
Awesome. Yeah.
anybody can take a look at that. And yeah, just all of those things. I would say leverage the Career Center. We can help you with getting connected to employers, with looking at your resume and that sort of thing. So that's why we're here. But great question. All right, so the last two questions that we are going to have time for from Trinity. Did you find that you had to do some on-the-job learning when you transitioned from school environment to a professional one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, of course, because like I said, like, last I guess last 2 months I've been trying to learn different technologies, because we are evaluating it to be used in our next version of our service, right? So I have to go in and dig into these technologies, not just how to use them, but how they're implemented. For example, I can give you an example. Like, I was looking into databases, so I had to like go and dig in. Okay, how do the databases, what data structures do the databases use? Like, do they use B trees, do they use LSMs, which one is faster? So there's always like this learning going on, because yeah, during the university maybe we did not learn about like different technologies. Like, there's so many different technologies, right? And yeah, implementation is one thing, like I said, but also like learning how they're built, because every technology is a piece of software, right? So you learn different things from it on a daily basis. So yeah, it's you have to keep learning 24/7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will just say, I mean, if anybody was on any of the other kind of day in the lives that we've done this week, every single alumni has talked about just kind of this continuous learning
Yeah.
that happens. And that is always going to be the case no matter what career you go into. Like learning doesn't stop after you get your degree. Like you are always going to have to kind of have this like lifelong learning mentality, especially if you're going to be working with technology, right? Because things are
Yeah.
always changing and, companies are always looking for ways to, be more efficient and maximize, tech in order to kind of, again, impact bottom line and things like that and help customers and whatever the case is. So, yeah, I definitely think on the job learning is definitely something that you should expect. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Dylan is asking, did you use any resources outside of classes to solidify your understanding of coding other than like elite code?
I think during the time that I was interviewing for jobs, I think that was mostly what was being asked for. So I had to focus a lot on that. And then, I just had a really good understanding of the projects that I had. So I remember when I was interviewing for my internship, I had only two interviews, and both the interviews really were digging deep into what I did in my projects and how much I understood them, what work I had done. And they were also looking for someone who is willing to learn on the job. So I think I showed that a lot that, I am willing to learn different technologies. I am willing to put in the effort. And that showed through my interviews and the way I talked. So yeah. I would say just knowing your projects really well. Why did you choose something or choose this technology versus the others? Those things would also, yeah, that's something I did. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, in a technical interview, a lot of what the employer or whoever is working with you on that is looking for, what you're just talking about is like, why did you decide to make this decision versus maybe taking it in another direction. And so just kind of understanding your thought process and being able to talk about those things is super important. Um, okay, well, we are over time, but this has been really awesome. Thank you so much, Sanya, for being here. Thank you to every student that asked questions. If students wanted to connect with you offline, is that something that you are open to, like
Sure.
adding to your LinkedIn, adding
Yeah.
adding you to the, okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I can, you can search for Sanyogita Lawande, or I can just drop a quick link to my
Okay.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Just do that. Just a
Okay, that
sec.
would be great.
One sec.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just drop it in the chat for everyone. Yeah. And you can
Awesome.
send me a request, and in the connection request, make sure to add that you attended this session so that I know that, yeah,
Yes.
this is where we met. But yeah,
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much again for taking time out of your busy day to be with us. Thank you, students, for being on the call, and hope everybody has a great rest of the day.
thank you so much, Laurie. It was awesome.
Bye. Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.